Welcome to the Rockstar Principles podcast with your hosts, National Distinguished Principal Dr. John Ross and National Digital Principal Dr. Nicholas Indeglio.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Rockstar Principles podcast. Nick Indeglio here with John Ross. John, it's been a minute.
Where you been?
I don't know. One day we did episode 140, and the next day we're gone.
Yeah, right. I feel like I blinked and a couple of years went by.
It actually really does kind of feel like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, we've had a hankering to get back onto this, though, for a while, right?
It has been. And it's funny, like when people ask questions about the podcast originally that we started in 2013, and you look at the world of podcasting now, what a different landscape. You know, now it's one of the main ways media is consumed overall. And here we are, back in the saddle when we were at the forefront of it all back in 2013.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just thinking when we were talking about setting this up tonight, going back to my high school. This isn't a shameless plug. Well, it is kind of shameless plug. I got put on my high school's Wall of Fame, and that was, I think it was 2015 when they did that.
Okay.
And I put on the plaque, like the plaque is now hanging in my alma mater, Sun Valley High School, Aston, Pennsylvania, go Vanguards. Um, accomplishments, president of the state association, former national principal of the year. And then I put co-host Rockstar Principles podcast. And people were like, what is that? In 2015, people were like,
What is it?
you're going to
What's
have
the
to explain to
podcast?
us what that is. We have no idea what that is. So it's funny to think, like 10 years ago when that happened, how things have changed and how this is like, now we've gone from being the only ones with one to the only ones without one. It
That,
seems like in a
yeah,
short amount of time.
literally a complete 180. It's
So
like,
we're
yeah,
a little
everyone's got
grayer,
a podcast.
little grayer. I'm a little chunkier, but back and better than ever otherwise.
Yep, and what a perfect time to return, given everything happening in the world of leadership education. I think the couple years, it's more than a couple, that we've been gone, and the experience overall, life wise, is going to give a neat perspective to recording again. So I'm looking forward to jumping back in. And I understand, John, you had a couple things that you might have written down that sort of touch on, I don't know, I guess on things where we were right.
Well, it's funny, in thinking back, again, we talked about this, recently, and just thinking about recording this and thinking about, oh, what are we going to talk about? What's going on? And the things that are happening to me, it seemed like the things that are happening now in education, many of them are things that the Rockstar Principles were talking about 10 plus years ago. So two things jumped out at me. I think we may have recorded one post-COVID, one or two post-COVID.
A
But
couple.
the one topic really came to light in COVID, and that's all the time we spent in 2015, 2016, 2017, talking about the importance of relationship building. That's something that both being middle school guys were both, really aware of and really focus on and feel like it's important. And I know for years when we would talk about things like that, people will we kind of got sat at the kiddie table, I think, when we would bring things like that up because yeah, that's important. And then all of a sudden, COVID hits and we come out of COVID, and everybody's starting to say, well, we got to figure out how to build relationships. And you and I are like, oh, yeah, welcome to the club. Good thing is, we've been doing this for some time, so we can kind of show you the way.
It's one of the biggest, I would say, if not the biggest trend that everyone always probably knew to some degree was more important than pretty much everything else. But like you said, and I think one of the more interesting things is, and this is one of the areas I definitely give our superintendent, who was at the time in charge of Downingtown School District during COVID, Dr. Lenardi, she put everything else to the side and said, just build relationships. That was job number one. So just the ability to empower teachers to do that. And we know there's teachers who naturally kind of do that and make that happen, regardless of, what the trends are or anything are. But for the teachers who maybe weren't a natural at, relationship building and things like that, we actually spent a lot of time working on how to do that, whether it was just
Yeah.
online or in general. I got you. So you'd have to think to some degree the world's a better place, even though there's been a lot of fallout from the damage done during COVID.
Yeah, and it's certainly not a slight on teachers in the classroom because I feel like A lot of the times teachers wanted to do things like that, but they were either through scripted programs or test score pressure or what have you. You know, they weren't really given the venue to do things like that. And there wasn't a whole lot of professional development on things like that, right? All the PD was on the standards and, state testing and differentiated instruction and, all of the catchphrases that have come and gone over the years. Um, so it's been great to actually be able to give them the time. Like they've wanted to do it, they've known how to do it, most of them. And when you have leadership that's telling you, yeah, this is important, then we were just able to hit the ground running because we already had a lot of ideas on how to do things like that. And I think a lot of the feedback that we got, coming out of that 5 years ago, 4 years ago now, was that people appreciated the things that we did. Like even in the height of COVID, making visits to houses to check on kids that maybe weren't engaging online, doing things like inviting people into the school and all the social distancing and everything. But I really think when the transition happened, it was tough. When we first got back to full time, everybody in person, no social distancing, no masking, or a little bit of masking, there was still a huge, huge gap that existed for our kids. So it definitely has taken a couple of years. And I would say last year was the first year. I think we had a number of conversations about how last year was like the first year where we felt quote unquote back to normal,
Yes.
pre-COVID normal. And it's been great because it's given us, I think it's given more people that perspective of the importance of relationship building, and now equal time is being given to both climate and relationships, and also achievement and test scores, like our district is doing, for example.
To build on that a little bit, right after COVID had happened, PA principals had a seat at the table at a task force in Pennsylvania on attendance, and trying to see how we can combat the incredibly high absentee rates after COVID. And unfortunately, one of the byproducts of COVID was, for a long time during those 2 years, we said, hey, being in the physical seat at school is not important. If you're sick, stay home. And we that was such a switch, from such a drastic change from all the focus on actually being at school. We want you there. And it took, like you said, at least 3 years for us to get back to a point where attendance rates are climbing back. My whole point, though, is during this committee time, there were people from all over the state, agencies that all work with families, truancy, etc. And I found it most interesting listening to the teachers from the Philadelphia schools and the social workers from the Philadelphia schools and the school attendance officers, who all said, our challenges are a little bit different. We are still in a war zone situation where it's simply not safe for kids to walk 2 blocks to school. They could get shot. There's a million things like that which could happen. And then they kind of like build on that a little bit, saying this is the feeling that other kids developed during COVID, where there was a fear of going to school for fear of getting sick.
Yeah.
That's not to say it's even remotely the same thing. You're getting shot, dying, things like that. However, that PTSD of sorts, you know what I mean? The trauma that has been inflicted on the idea of just being in a place that used to be the safest place. Everyone almost unilaterally at that table agreed the most important thing is simply kids have to want to be in school. We can have any program in the world. We can give them money. We can give them gift cards to come to school. But unless they have a meaningful connection with a human being to be at school with, sounds familiar, doesn't it? Dot
Yeah.
activity and all those,
Yeah.
the power of connections, that they're not going to be there. And you've got to find that magic sauce somehow. And that magic sauce is almost always, a teacher those kids are connecting with. And of course, their friends and social networks are super important too. And we've seen the damage that's come out of that.
And I guess what's frustrating for me, I agree. Well, what's frustrating though, as you're saying this, making me think, is that just as we've done, I've been now 33 years in education. Um, we create canned programs to build relationships, and that's not what it is. Like if you need some canned program to teach you how to build relationships with kids, I'm sorry, but I feel like respectfully, maybe you got into the wrong profession. Like I get like learning from mentors. That's a great way to learn how to. If you, I don't expect somebody right out of school to know how to build relationships with kids at the same level of someone who's been around for a while. You should at least have
Sure.
some, level of it. Um, but it just drives me crazy when we get these spam emails or when I see things on social media, about people, hey, buy our program. And even I don't know, maybe it's a little controversial, but even to a little extent, like a lot of the SEL stuff,
Yeah.
I feel like that's been that pendulum. We used to talk all the time about pushing the pendulum, that pendulum shift. Oh, let's grab this program because this is going to show we're going to be able to talk about this thing. We do this SEL thing, and they're fine. Like, I'm not going to go off on a tangent around it, I guess, too much because I don't want to get in trouble. But in my professional opinion and personal opinion as a dad, it's the real stuff that gets you the results. It's the boots on the ground, the frontline teachers that are like just genuinely caring about their children. Like I see so much of that. We get the privilege to see, people like overextending themselves, doing things. You hear all the stories about teachers just going to the ends of the earth to do things for their children. And it's that simple. It's really that simple. Just like, you know what I mean? Like not saying I care, but actually showing it. You don't have to say it. The way the kids learn that you care is just by showing it. And that's where you establish that connection and that rapport that is like, it's unbreakable. Like for most kids, I feel like it really is. And that's why so many of them come back as they get old and they come back to see certain teachers and reflect on what they did, especially now, the ones who our teachers pulled through COVID kicking and screaming, and now they have an appreciation for that. So I've just kind of always, even more so, in recent years, had the belief that it's got to be real. And the CAN programs might be nice and the workshops might be fine. Um, but I feel like it's more real and more authentic when people are just coming from the heart and doing what they think is best.
I'm fine with the concept of, hey, if we're going to use direct instruction, which we know is a proven tactic to teach math and reading, can we teach soft skills with direct instruction too?
Yeah.
Yes, we can teach the foundations of it, right? And that's what most of these SEL programs do, even the really good ones, right? They'll teach you what conflict resolution is. They teach you how your body
Hmm.
feels when it's in states of conflict, how to kind of work through that. That's the small direct instruction piece, right? A teacher, whoever, school personnel, it could be the custodian. It should be the custodian. It should be, the cafeteria, everybody who's part of the building. We teach them how to do those things, but then we have to model it and give them the opportunities to practice it, right?
Hmm.
So what you're saying is exactly right. All those years from, I would say, and I know you can go back further than this, but like the 2000 era PSSA is really starting through 2015 when they reauthorized No Child Left Behind. All we saw were curriculums, math curriculums, beat the test, reading curriculums, ELA, beat the test, science, beat the test. Now what we're seeing is just what you said. All the advertisements, everything is SEL, SEL, SEL. And it is funny in the sense that this is the stuff we've been preaching from the beginning. Everyone's trying to make a buck off of
Yeah.
the disaster that COVID was, right?
Right.
And what you're saying is really what's true. I'm fine with a little bit. Let's give them a little bit of that, right? Teach them how to, and then we have to show them, because in real life, these are real life skills you're going to have all the time. I
Yeah.
might never have to use the Pythagorean theorem, after I've learned it or whatever,
Hmm.
but learning how to resolve conflict with someone who's escalated, everyone's going to have to do that at some point. So you're right. It is funny. And the fact that so many places now, and my second part, here's what I think the biggest problem with it is. And I'm curious as to your perspective. We empower teachers right after COVID so much, build relationships. And then we say, oh, now we're going to put a canned program in front of you that's SEL, so you don't have to do building relationships anymore. This will do it for you, right? So it's almost giving a pass to just tune off now and say, oh, this program, this video is going to teach them this, so I can just teach math, science, whatever it is. It's almost counterintuitive.
Yeah, all I'm going to say is I agree. Because if I say anything else, if I start going down that road, I think we're going to get us both in trouble. But let me transition to the other thing before we go too far. The other thing that we were right about, that we were talking about back in 2014, 2015, 2016, that's really getting a lot of traction now. I've seen it like over the past 2 years, maybe. Trade schools as opposed to college, blowing up right now, blowing up. And these two guys were saying this 10 plus years ago that this was the future. This was the route. This was what people should be thinking about, kids should be thinking about. And I'll just use the most recent example I have. I had a plumber here replacing our water softener. excuse me, our water softener for people not from Delco. Um,
Understood.
yeah, and he had an apprentice with him, and this kid just, followed that route, had the interest, and this kid's going to be making bank, and he's not going to have the debt from college, and he's going to have a skill that is just in such demand right now. It's ridiculous how much it's in demand. And the only other person that I'll say, and I'll just say it to help us get a plug and maybe get a connection with him, that has been talking about this for as long as us, is Mike Rowe, the guy from Dirty Jobs.
Yep.
And now he does a lot of other things, but he actually runs a charity where he helps fund people to go to trade schools and pay for trade schools. But it's just, I think probably I have no empirical data to support this, but I think what may have happened was during COVID, not to say that word again, a lot of people began to realize that maybe they didn't need to go to a college on campus, pay for housing, pay for the enormous tuition, all the other fees, the books and everything, that online learning like really blew up. And so I had a kid in college at the time and he wasn't thinking that, but I was thinking it like, what are we paying? He's at home learning everything he had to learn completely online. Why am I paying the extra money for the room and board when I could be, having him live home, do this stuff, which you wouldn't have done in a million years. But I think that may have been what kind of started a shift in people's thinking. That and the obvious, how long does it take you to get a plumber? How long does it take you to get an electrician? When you have something happen in your house, it takes a while to find somebody that's really good, and you're going to pay through the nose when you get them. You just have to suck it up and know that you're going to pay through the nose.
Right. Plumbing, HVAC, master carpentry, electrical, right? Of those areas. That data, so all that data is there, the research, right? It's showing it now. You can just look in the news to see how many colleges that are state institution funded are closing across the country. How many private universities have shuttered because they wouldn't change because they were stuck, even though we were telling them to change.
Yeah.
We were trying to
Yeah.
say the
Yep.
emperor is not wearing any clothes. We see
Right.
what you are and what you're doing. So that's the first part of it. The second part is who did get on board right away? The community colleges, right? They
Right.
immediately started forming partnerships with tech
Yep.
schools, with other universities to make sure that credits were more transferable, that degrees could be from an associate's to a bachelor's in the trade areas or get your trade first, then business, right? So all that stuff started happening. And then on top of that, the trade schools were like, finally, people are realizing what we are. And then their enrollment started booming. And then the shift and balance of power starts changing. Here's a specific example. You were talking about your plumber that was, at the house, and look at what plumbers are making, right?
Mm-hmm.
Start there. Anyway, we have a colleague who has two sons in high school currently. This is a principal formerly worked with both of us, and both of his sons and his daughter, they are all very intelligent, some of the best. I want to say not compliant, but engaged, right? These are good students, athletes, participators, all the things you want your children to be. The two sons are within a couple years of each other, both in high school. Here's what they decided to do. They are both going to the technical high school, the trade school. They're each taking a different trade. I think one's doing HVAC and one's doing electrical, or maybe it's plumbing. With two of the trades,
Mm-hmm.
and they're working on starting a business right after they graduate high school. They are going to be set for life.
Yeah.
And then when our buddy retires, he's just going to join up with them.
Yeah. With zero to no debt.
There it is.
Right.
That,
He might still be paying the debt off from his own college when
yeah,
he's not having to pay anything for theirs. Yeah,
it's it.
it's out of control, and it warms my heart, to be honest, because I can't tell you how many times in conversations with people, or taking coursework, or just reading in general, that if everybody thumbing their nose at this idea, and everybody, the old notion of, oh, you're driving past a construction worker, oh, better do good in school, kid, or that's going to be you someday. Well, yeah, now that would be awesome if that was you, because
Exactly
those are
right.
the people that, just the way debt is just killing people right now, and the way it's just smothering people. My kids that are that are out of school in their mid to late 20s, just having such a hard time, following the American dream and getting a house and everything like that, because they're just trying to get out of debt. And they're doing spectacular work, and I don't regret at all what they've gone into. But I have friends, and I graduated high school 40 years ago, 1987, which your brother couldn't believe when we told him.
Oh my God,
Um,
yeah.
and I have friends from high school that I see on social media, never stepped foot in college, and they've got a shore house. They have multiple cars. They've got all the toys you can imagine. And that's why I've always thought that. Like when social media first kind of blew up, in the mid 2005, I guess 2008, that range, and I started seeing these friends from high school and started making friends. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know that guy became a plumber. That guy became this. That guy became that. Look at them, and they're killing it. They're crushing it. And it's
Yeah.
all because they went into that field and didn't have that debt. And now there's a huge need for them. A lot of them are ready to retire, but they're crazy to retire because they're just making so much money doing what they're doing that,
Yes,
they can bring people on and pay them under their LLC or whatever, under their corporation. And I just think it's great. I just
it
think it's
is.
great because I think for so long that has been looked down upon. And you and I were talking about it some time ago as the way of the future. And it sure has proven true. We were definitely spot on with that. Not to pat
It
ourselves on the back, but I will.
No, we are absolutely patting ourselves on the back. And that dovetails right into a third thing we were right about. So let me just set the stage for it here. I don't know that we talked about this in the pre-show when we were game planning.
Yeah.
So those jobs we're talking about, right? The your nurses, your master carpenters, your electricians, your plumbers. And I'm not saying nursing's a trade. I know there's a difference between skilled trades and some of the professions we're discussing. But guess what else they are? They are what we now call not future-proofed. They are AI-proofed. Those are things that
Good
artificial
point.
intelligence
Yeah.
won't be able to do. What were we saying 10 years ago about technology? We were saying that the next wave of technology was going. I'm not saying we predicted artificial intelligence. We did not. The Matrix and
Hmm.
Skynet and Terminator did that years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what we did say was what technology is going to do is level the playing field, right? So we have students that for years and generations have been slower readers, poorer writers. Artificial intelligence now has changed the game for those students. If they are taught to properly use that technology and then use the 4 C's, who started talking about those? Was that us again?
I could
Was
have sworn it was. I don't know.
Wow. The ability, what do
Crazy.
employers want? The ability to communicate, collaborate, think critically, and be creative, right?
Yeah.
AI boosts all four of those things. Technology is now giving kids opportunities they did not have before.
Right.
Why is Joe Rogan making hundreds of millions of dollars a year and we're not? How did we not?
I think because Joe Rogan didn't take 10 years off doing his
Oh,
podcast.
okay. Maybe he worked a little harder on that front.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah,
No,
so
it's just it's been I don't know how many times we've looked at one another or talked to one another over the past few years, and something happens and we'll send each other a link. We'll send each other a news story, something that's going on, and we're like, see, there we are again. Just stuff we've been talking about. So, those of you that are new, you might want to stick around because there's going to be a lot of knowledge shared back and forth here that, maybe someday, yeah, you're going to be thinking, oh, I heard that on Rockstar Principles a few years ago.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we're good for a lot of things, John.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
good
not too
for a lot
bad.
of things. Yeah.
All right, last segment. Ready? As I adjust my
Absolutely.
backwards, obnoxious looking backwards hat that I wear,
Yes.
so I don't care what people think.
I believe that
Um,
hat says NFL. Is that what it says?
yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
of course, go Birds. I don't know if we're allowed to show that on here or not, but
I think we are.
yeah. I've always been a backwards hat guy, so I'm 56 years old. I'm still a backwards hat guy. Whatever. Some things don't change. Our last segment. Nick has finally, talk about on the cutting edge. Talk about being like on the
Uh,
precipice of like what is happening and what is going on in the world and just constantly having his finger on the pulse of things. Nick has finally joined the world of fantasy football.
oh God!
So we
Oh
have a
my God!
group of principal friends
All principals.
that started a fantasy football teams league, excuse me. It's called the Principals, our fantasy football league. Some of our buddies, Jim Archowski, Ben Feeney, Rob Farina, Mike
Mike
Maley started.
Maley.
Mike Maley's the
Yeah.
commish. Rick Esch
John
is in it. I
Bauer.
think about
Oh,
who
you're
else
right.
you
Yeah.
might.
Feeney.
John Bauer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Nick, like we ran the league last year, and Nick never made a trade, never subbed anybody in, just left his team alone the whole season. We're all trash talking back and forth. Nick never touches his team all season, right? And so we bring the league back this year, and Nick said, "You know what? Start explaining to me how this all works." And we started explaining it to him, and lo and behold, this guy is like killing it.
I had zero clue how any of it worked. It was so bad, John, that I had to remember. I had to ask. I was like, "Why is this guy on the bench?" And then you were like,
Yeah.
"Because he's injured." I'm like, "Well, what am I supposed to do? Doesn't the computer fix that?" You're like, "No, you've
What
got
is
to
a
get another
flex
player."
player? What does flex mean? Why do I have a defense? I don't understand. How does a defense get points? Yeah,
Yeah, like what?
yeah.
How does any of
The
this work?
National Digital Principle of the Year, as our boss likes to tease you about, having to have
Yes.
fantasy football explained to him is right up there with one of my favorite memories from the summer.
The other funny part for me, at least, was as I was learning a little bit. Not only was I totally confused about the rules, I was totally confused how to use the ESPN fantasy football website. I couldn't even log in. I
Yeah,
made a team in the wrong place. It wasn't even part of our league. I
yeah,
actually think I'm
right.
playing in another league somewhere
Right.
that I don't
Well,
know about.
the funny part about last season was I think you actually won once or twice too, even though you didn't even touch. It just shows you how ridiculous fantasy football can be sometimes. Because
Absolutely.
you actually won a couple. And the funny thing, I just realized because we did auto draft, right? When nobody drafted their
Yes.
teams, we just
Yeah.
had the league auto draft. The league auto drafted me. I've got like five guys on a bye this weekend. And typically you try to spread your buys out,
Right.
you know? I got five players on my team that all have buys this weekend. So John Bauer, congratulations. You're going to kick my butt this weekend because I got nobody playing. They're all on buys and I don't want to drop them and, pick up other players. So I think I'm just going to take the L this weekend.
I think John. I don't know if he deselected auto draft, or if you could have input into it, but he somehow wound up with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley.
I think it's
So,
just worked out that way for him.
I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just having that
Yeah.
combo in games together, because I can now appreciate, and all, putting the funny joking part aside, I like watching football just for the athleticism, so it's Eagles for sure, because that's the team we root for. And then there are certain players from Penn State that I like to follow. But having the fantasy piece in play, so, you've got the, updated scoreboard. I'm watching games I wouldn't normally watch,
Sure.
trying to tune
Yeah.
into Red Zone or, paying more attention. So it's more fun Thursday through Sunday to actually engage in some of this. So,
So I'm predicting by this time next year, you're going to be in like six different leagues. You're gonna be you're gonna have your computer screens all set up, watching multiple games at once, tracking like you're just gonna be all in. You're gonna like leave us all in the dust.
stats and working like
Yeah,
every aspect of it. Oh gosh, it is fun, and we have I think there's 8 of us, so it's a small league, and
yeah.
there's not big money involved with it, but hey, it makes it fun.
No, it's
It's
fun going
crazy.
back and forth, joking
I
with each
didn't.
other, just on the text
Yeah,
thread and everything. Like, and the
there's
flip side is that I've been in one with my family, my wife, my kids, her brother and sister, and in-laws and stuff. We've all been in this league for a number of years now, which I think I've won it four times in the past 6 years or something like that. I've been crushing them.
okay.
Yeah. I'm crushing my 19-year-old daughter in fantasy football. It's a lot of fun.
Is
Um,
Cam in it?
but no, my point, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
My point is that it's just made it fun for us watching football, like as a family and stuff. It just gives you something else. Obviously, I mean, we're not sharing anything new that people don't already know. Just you didn't know. Everybody else knows this. You were the only one that didn't know. So,
Literally.
welcome to the world of fantasy football. Maybe we'll start like a fantasy hockey league or something soon, NHL or baseball. We
That
can
would be
start
fun
jumping
too.
into different leagues. Yeah, yeah, give something else to follow. There's got to be a fantasy wrestling one, right? Is there fantasy professional wrestling?
Yeah, but it's trickier because the way the wins and
Yeah,
losses and stuff like that. But yeah, they have it. It's a thing.
you never
They
know.
do it for Big Brother. They do it for
That's
all
true.
you
Yeah,
name
yeah.
it, Survivor and all those other ones, which
Good
is
times.
great.
All no wagering, no money changes hands. Of course, it's all just
Of
for
course
fun,
not.
right?
No,
No.
no, no. We're not running a sports book or anything like that. Although we could probably. Hey,
We
it's
could
great to
actually
be back.
start our softball league too with our cool jerseys.
Really, and
Rockstar
if
Principles
we start a
jersey.
storefront, maybe people can order if they
Yeah, right.
want
That's
a
right.
Rockstar Principle jersey. Hey, in the coming weeks, we are going to be talking about tons of stuff. Like we said, years have gone by, so we've got the U.S. military to discuss. We have a son, John's son, is in the military, and that is a whole other career path and things
I
to
like how
talk
you
about.
said we have a son. Like
Well,
you,
I feel partially
you
responsible
lost me
for.
for a second there. Although you've known him since he was a little kid, so I guess you helped him get into Penn State. So I guess you could take a little bit of a claim in that.
He feels kind of like me. We're going to talk about artificial joints. You name it, we're going to talk about it here on the podcast. And we are happy to be back. So get back on the feed, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts now. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. John's going to start a TikTok page with some dances and the
And
Rockstar
listen,
Principles.
Spotify. If you want to get in now, we're not looking at Rogan money. Like, if you want to get in on the ground floor, give us a buzz, right? Like, we're definitely not looking for Rogan money, but we'd
Yeah,
be happy to join the squad at Spotify.
we've got good pensions lined up. We just want what's
Right,
fair.
right. Absolutely.
All
I'm
right,
sure they'll
brother,
be
we'll talk
reaching out.
soon.
Yep. Have a good week, man.
We'll
See ya.
see you next time on the Rockstar Principles podcast.